Hello, welcome. Time for some more Haskell live streaming. I'm going to look at effectful today. I've kind of been putting this off, partly because of other things to do, and partly because I find it a bit intimidating. When I look at the example code, it just seems like a lot to learn, and learning that on a live stream, it might not be the best experience for people, but we'll see how it goes. Before I do that, last week I looked at reading environment variables and using overlapping instances on the type class to do that. Coincidentally, since then, the latest Haskell Unfolder episode is about type families and overlapping instances, where they look at the same problem and they solve it with overlapping, but then they solve it in a more structured way, I guess, with type family, which is both a lot more verbose, but also a lot more powerful and a lot clearer in some cases. So I'm not sure I would have used it for the problem I had, but it's an interesting episode if you watch the previous one about overlapping. So yeah, that was just a little thing I came across. But today is all about effectful. So let me go here. Okay, so in the code I was writing for my little payment app, which doesn't do payments yet, we have a basic definition of a ledger entry, which has got some fields in it. And then we have a basic database query. So we connect to the database, having loaded the compute environment in a very cool way. And then I'm simply running a query here and getting the result out, and then printing out the ledger stuff. What I really want to do is have some code, like a module somewhere that does the ledger entry loading for me. Should be finding it by account ID. Well, we don't really have accounts yet, but when we have accounts, finding it by account ID. And yeah, I can do that, right? I can just write a function that runs under IO. I can pass in the database connection, and I can run this query, which is fine. But part of what I want to do with this is learn how I might structure a more realistic app. And one of the things I was thinking about is looking into effect systems, and effectful is the one I'm going to look into. So I'm going to write a lot of complicated code, it seems, to do a simple thing, but the idea is it would scale up with the application. So although it's complicated for this first thing, it would presumably pay off over time and let me structure the effects of some of these functions in a more elegant way. That's the hope. So before I begin, actually, I've forgotten to run Docker. I rebooted earlier. I forgot to restart it. So I'll let this start up. There we go. It should be running now. And then I can see if it actually works. I think I'll run. Oh, I forgot about that. I'll run pay me. I'll run pay me. And this will fail because the database is not available, I hope. Oh, no, it's failing because of this. And how did I load this? There was a file. So I got that, and then it's direct. Oh, if I just cd back and into there we go, loads them. Okay, so I've run it now. Oh, it seems as though the database has restarted. Docker PS. Indeed it has. Cool. 58 seconds, so it just restarted automatically. Good. So I have a database with some stuff in it. So I'm going to have a look at effectful and try and make this querying an effect under there. I will do two things. So one is, let's grab this. I'm going to kick off the installation of this because I imagine it might take a little while to build. So I'll get that going. So I will, oops, not print it. I will go to Cabal, and I'm just going to drop that into the library, I think. Oh, I'll need it in executable as well, actually. So effectful, that version. And here as well. And then it can go off and start installing that. So while that's building, I just want a quick look at this thing. So essentially what I want to be doing is writing one of these things. It's going to be a function, right? They're just inlining it for the example, but it's going to be a function. It will call something called read file in their example. Mine will probably be read ledger. And then they're doing something with it. And then they run it. They've got a couple of implementations of read file. They've got one that runs the file system and one that runs in memory. I just want to write one that runs not the file system, but the actual database. So I want to get to the point where I can say run F, run error, whatever this error is going to be, and then run the effect, which is going to be some database IO thingy, and then call a function, and that function will load and print the ledger entries. Don't know if I'll get it all to work today, but this is where I'm aiming for. In theory, it should be very simple. It's just I don't know what I'm doing, so it might take me a long time. Okay, so back up here. So I'm basically going to be doing a lot of copying and pasting of code out of here. And the first thing is that they have a data type to represent the effect. So their example here is a file system. Mine's going to be a ledger store, I guess. And I'll have something like load ledger. So let's get that going. Wow. Everything's broken. Okay. File build. I think something went wrong when it's building it. No, it did not. I'll run. Oops. Unpay me. That still works. So start LSP. I don't know why I had so many errors there a second ago. And now it seems okay. Cool. Okay. So let's create a new file for this, I think. So in the library, I'm going to create something called store for now. I mean, as the application gets bigger, I might split this up, but let's just start with store. And that's going to be in source store.hs. Give a second. Is it going to work? Look at that. An amazing thing. Okay. So we want this data type. And it won't be called file system, but let me import effect to start with. I'm going to call this ledger store. And it's going to have a single function here. So it's going to say load ledger. Funny capitalized thing. Interesting. It's going to take not a file path here, but we'll maybe take, we won't take anything yet. In future, we'll take the user ID, I guess, or something that ties the ledger entries together. What's this file system that they're talking about? Data file system. Oh, sorry, it's here. It's going to be ledger store. M and a string, and it's not going to be a string, it's going to be a list of ledger entries. Hopefully I can import this. Okay, so that's the only thing I want to do. And then I say this. Magic line. So these will all, well, file system will be ledger store. The dispatcher will come from effectful and dynamic will come from effectful. No, it comes from data dynamic. And now I'm going to need type families. Okay, that makes sense. I'm going to enable these globally because I think it's one of these extensions that's not harmful, so I'm aware. and I'll probably need it a lot. See, this makes it go away. It did not. Add type families. Don't understand. That didn't work when I put it in here. Didn't type it. No idea why that went wrong. Okay, no, it's not going wrong. It's just a timing issue, I guess. Right, I think I've used the wrong dynamic. So dynamic. No, it seems to want to import from here, but the error I get, expected effectful core, blah, 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 env.dispatch, but dynamic is type star, as kind star, sorry. So why does that not work here? And where does dynamic come from? I told it to install effectful, which, where are we? Effectful re-exports effectful core and some useful stuff. So I would expect that just to work. Total env dispatch, but dynamic is kind of so Google. Is there a dynamic that I'm not finding? There's data dynamic, and there's nothing that explicitly says effectful. Yes, there is. Effectful core has got effectful dispatch dynamic. That's what I thought it should have been the case. Effectful dispatch dynamic. Dynamic. Let me kill that. Does not export dynamic. Good. That's problematic. Good start. The example doesn't work. Okay, so in here, dynamic. Where's this come from? This comes from dispatch. In fact, I can put it here, I think. Dispatch. No. Oh, probably intended to use data kinds. Okay. I'm just missing an extension, which is why it wasn't helping me put the right one in. Data kinds. It's going to be an exercise in setting up extensions and restarting HLS. Restart the LSP. Amazing, it seems to be not complaining. Oh no, it's not complaining, but it's, where is it complaining? It's complaining a test. What's the problem with this? Oh no, that's more of a complaint than I would imagine. mspec Okay. Right, so this is because LSP was broken. And I restarted it in the library, but now I've restarted it everywhere. There's apparently a new version of HLS and Cabal, which should make this a bit better, but I think they're not quite there yet. Anyway, this line is now working. So I should be able to run their piece of code. Oh no, I haven't done it yet. I do it later. Okay, this is comparing it to MTL. So in MTL, you write functions. Here you write a data type with type constructors. So I can generate these automatically with effectful th, but let's do it by hand for now. So I can try and get some understanding of what's going on. And then we can look at using template Haskell later to generate for me. So we don't have a read file. We have, oops, load ledger. So we're given Haskell stack and ledger store. We see this funny operator, and then this thing, I don't really understand what's going on here. And then we don't take a file path. We don't take anything, in fact, and it's going to be f of s of ledger entry. Don't really understand a lot of what's going on here, but let's make it at least type check. There we go. Okay, so ledger entry doesn't take a path. We call send, which should come from effectful. Oh no, it comes from dispatch dynamic. Read file is actually going to be ledger store. Doesn't take a path. Don't need the brackets. And then it's now saying a legal term level use of data constructor for class ledger store. Well, that makes me sad. So the read file they have here, it's a constructor, so it's load ledger, not ledger store. Okay, type checks. Must be good. So that's the type of the effect I want to implement, and now I can implement it. So again, I'll copy their example. It'll be run ledger store IO. We don't have FS error. Need to ident these. Okay, so what have we got here? We don't have an FS error yet. Did they define that anywhere? Or is assuming you will define? Oh, they have defined it up here. Okay. So let's define that. They have FS error. We've got load ledger and send constructor, load ledger. It's a string, why not? Driving stock show. Okay. So now we have something which is access to the IO effect, I think, and the load ledger error. Okay, this is a legal case. Perhaps you intend to use lambda case parser. What does that even mean? What does that mean? Did I skip something which does that? No. Don't know what its problem is with this particular thing. Let me start by just replacing this anyway. So run no, not run, it's load ledger. Doesn't take a path. IO.read file path. Yeah. We need to put something in here. We don't have a path. And then this thing, so lift IO M catches an IO exception, and then it throws an FS error instead. And we want to say load ledger error instead. So, but this thing, I don't understand this lambda case. Not come across that before. We don't have a path, so we need that in place. And multiple declarations of load ledger, because I forgot the word error. Okay, maybe. Let's have a look at this. So we're going to import this. We're going to import this from somewhere. Effectful error dynamic, I guess. File system we don't have. It's load ledger. Right. So IO exception. We can pull that in. Right, okay, I renamed the type declaration, but not the implementation of it. Store IO. Okay, so this, let's do that for now. Well, we get to actually load something, but it's not, we need to do a thing. Now what have we got? So in their example, they had interpret case read file path, and read file was the data type constructor. But this is not the constructor, this is the type. So load ledger is not the type of the ledger store. Okay. I like I'm just smashing the keyboard in the hope that it will eventually compile. Add mode.io to the import list with effectful. Do I want to do that? Where did they import it from? I think they did from effectful. Okay. Catch will come from control exception. Throw error will come from control exception. Maybe no. Comes from here, from effectful aerodynamic. Maybe it doesn't. Effectful aerostatic they have here. And I do effectful aerodynamic. Can I change this? Would it matter? Am I looking at a different page? Too many questions. Didn't magically fix it. Okay, let's put it back to dynamic, which is where it grabbed it from. So it's possibly actually the same problem, which is what are we doing in adapt? So adapt is taking some some monadic action, I guess. It's lifting it to the IO, catching an exception, and it's throwing an error. So that's not what I'm doing here. I can say pure that. I cannot say pure that. It doesn't make any sense. The type of IO read file. Let's grab it and see. Just work it out. The type of IO.read file. So it goes from file path, which are passing into IO string. And the type they have here, oh God, type they have here is file system M string. So maybe we could do a proper implementation. So we're just going to load DB, load from DB. I don't know what it's going to be. Load from DB is going to go from basically implementation of this thing. Got stuck again. We'll need the config somehow. I'll try to delay this a little bit. But we need the pool, I guess. What's the type of pool here? It doesn't know because it can't restart LSP for some reason. I don't really understand. Failed to run it for some reason. Okay, so config, it comes from load config, which is this thing, so I can give it a config. So I go from config to IO of list of ledger entry. So load from DB of config equal to this thing. So let's do a bunch of stuff. So we'll import this. What did we do with X's once we loaded it? We mapped it into ledger entries. Temperature, so for that. Now so much stuff is broken. Undefined, I'll come back to in a second. Didn't help make my error go away. Okay, DB pool with resource comes from data pool with resource. Yeah, makes sense. Query should come from PostgreSQL simple. What's the problem here? Fmap. So for every entry, we create a ledger entry on X's Okay, so we need to lift that into IO or return it as IO. Okay, so now we have a list of ledger entries. If we can get the config, let's work out how to get the config. So now it's saying can't match IO ledger entry with FF ledger entry. Okay, so so we can interpret and simply execute the corresponding IO actions, additionally a bit of error management. I mean, let's not do a bit of error management. So here, the type of this thing, I need to call lift IO on that, I think. Right. Okay, so in theory, if I get the config in, which I still don't know how to do, I don't know how to do that. I can just pass it in, right? So I can say config to that. And then I can say config here. And then here. Okay, so I will simply, I'll worry about error handling later. But for now, I will, if I call run ledger store IO, passing in the config and the ledger store, it should be able to call, yeah, I should be able to call load ledger on it, I think. And that will call load from DB, and that will do this thing where it grabs the stuff out of the database. Okay. And we're not where we're handling quite yet. And then they got another example, which is to do it in memory, but let's not do that as well. Okay, I can drop out my error for now, but I'll leave it in, I guess. So we can write a function now, I think, called load. And don't know what its type is. Oh, I don't know what its type is, it says here. Or is it not a file system? It is going to be load ledger store. So if we have a list of effects which contains a ledger store, then we're going to return a list of ledger entries. And what do they have here? Very straightforward, I think. Oh, can we change that? So we don't need to do anything, I don't think, other than actually load them. And we can call load ledger. Oh, it needs to take a config. Config here. Not quite. So I can say like entries, that, and what type of entries. Don't tell me what the type of entries is, and then I don't know, pure entries. It's a bit silly having to do and then just returning it. But this is still not right. So they are calling read file, which is the thing they defined up here, which calls send. So read file, oh, load ledger does not take config. That's going to be problematic. Okay, so I get to do that, and then that, and then that, and we'll go to the config here because we're not using it. Well, that worries me. We might need to send it. Okay, but we have an action now somewhere. Where are we? Down here, we have an action. So, yeah, I guess good thing to do is check its type. So the type of load looks right. I did tell it what it was, but it still looks right. Okay, so now finally, I'm going to see if I can run this line. Do a thing, do it. That. So this is not FS error, this is load ledger, even though we're not using it yet. And then I want to get all these things. It's not run file system IO, it's run ledger store IO. It's not action, it's load. Now we have a problem. Config. You don't have. So config here and run F. We can import and run error. We can import. And that's not right. So config goes here, not later. Okay, that's the magic line, but I need to get a config. So I really need to run this. I was going to say I need to run this in an environment, but actually config itself is reasonably straightforward. Wow, that's a confusing type. Config. is just this. So I can say something like test config is of type config, and test config equals this. So DB connection is something, I'm going to grab it. Idle time, something like 10.0, and pool size, it doesn't really matter, but 1 will do. DB connection, if I look in the env, is this. Draw in there. Import config. Okay, so we have a config and we have an action and we have the ability to run the action. So if I say do it with test config, enter that, what happens here? There we go. Pool max resources must not be smaller than num stripes. Isn't that helpful? Why is this a problem? I wonder if I can't run this from HLS and do all the IO shit. So let me just grab this for a second and go back to main. So we have a config. Oh wow, we need to import everything. So this is going to be store.dat, and this is going to be store.dat, and config we already have. And then we can go to that, I think. So run F, I'll expect to give me back the answer. And it's going to give me back, hopefully right. Do that, and then we can say something like print result. And instead of get rid of that, get rid of this. I can comment these out for a second. Error condition. Is it not saving? Is it just not happy at all? Where are my warnings coming from? Yeah, it just didn't run Cabal, so it doesn't know what's going on. Go back to the store for a second. We don't need to do it. This is going to be result. Comes from that, I think. Import qualified store. Right. Okay. Then we can import some of this stuff. We can get rid of these because we're not using them at the minute. Okay, that might work. What type of res is either load ledger error or it's a list of ledger entries. Okay. So let's build and run it. Well, we look at that. It actually worked, which is somewhat surprising. Okay, so then we can say something like case result of, and then if it's left error, then we want to print the error out, so we can just say put strlen. No, you can do that. We can say error. Show the error. Whereas if it's write a list of ledger entries, what can we do? We can print them out. So this is not dummy ledger, it's not ledger entries. I'll grab that again. And oops. We'll do these as well. So dummy ledger becomes ledger entries. And some ledger becomes, okay, try running again. Okay, so some debugging with config. So this is what we got back. These are the ledger entries one by one, and that's the total amount. Okay. Getting better. So back to store. There's a couple of things. I'm going to try and put the error handling back in again. I'm hoping it will be easier to do when everything else works. So through error, where am I getting through error from? Let me start off by getting rid of those. Okay, so it's not lift out here, it's adapt. And it's getting choked up on this thing, it seems. So I couldn't, the type it's looking for. Oh, is this a parsing error? Sorry, I was just wondering if run.io is in the right place. lift.io and catches, and then this whole thing is a function. Okay, that is still the case. So we lift M into IO, and that throws an exception, then we catch it, and then we rethrow it as a loading the ledger entry error. Loading the ledger error. But it's not happy doing that. So looking at their type here, they say the effects have IO effect, and they have error, FS error, in our case, error load ledger error. And given some config and some ledger store, then run under F with these effects and return A, whatever A is. And in this case, RA happens to be a list of ledger entries. Okay, and then you've got this thing, I'm not totally sure what it does, but interpret, and then a lambda, which then does a case, which says, if it's read file, I'm going to have read file, we have load ledger, then adapt, and then load from DB the config. Okay, and then their write file we don't have the equivalent of. And this adapt thing, I can just inline the adapt actually. Oh, it did it badly. And it left in place. And everything's gone wrong. Okay. It really did not do it in the way that I expected. So lift.io of load from db of config. And then we will catch with this handler. So it'll say if E is an IO exception, then we rethrow it as this new type. Okay. So this bit, I think, this bit on its own works. So that's not capturing the error. Okay, and then catch E is of type IO exception. Then we need to do something. It's interesting that doesn't work because undefined should just match everything. What am I missing here? Their throw error comes from F somewhere. Throw error, exclusive lines. A throw error of load, ledger error, showing E, whatever E is, and throw error. That's fine. It's not fine. So catch is going to say IO action of A, which is lift IO load from db config, and some function which takes an error and returns an IO of A. Oh, that's... No, they haven't got those lift IO. They lift this into IO, but they don't lift this into IO. I'm very confused as to why this doesn't work. I mean, I shouldn't have to do this, I don't think. It's not going to help. Which type is not matching? It's like when you run through catch, we lose this and we end up with this. So what's the minimum we can do? Undefined. Or even just const, yeah. Okay, and it's now saying the same thing. Fine, not fine. So they're passing in this IO action, which I have here, is my IO action. They're calling lift IO on it, which is all fine, and then they're calling catch, and their catch comes from control monad catch. And my catch comes from control exception catch. Interesting. Is that a thing? Ident it. Okay. It's a matter of hidden package exceptions. That's why I didn't find it. So exceptions 0, 10, 7. So this is in main here. So this is exceptions. Did I grab that? I did not. It was 0, can't remember what it was, 0, 10, 7. 0, 10, 7. Okay. Save that. Of course, IO exception came from control exception, which I don't think mine did, but I can't remember. Give it some time, maybe, or explicitly restart the LSP. Can it load this? Oh, it's because I'm in store, that's why. It doesn't go there. It goes into here. It's in the library, not in main. Give this a second. There we go. Okay, now I'm putting the right catch. Good. Now it's confused, which is good. I think it's confused in the correct way. Okay, I'll import this from control exception. Throw error, I will import from here. Okay. A lot of type errors because I imported the wrong catch. But I think we're good now. I think we're good. So I got here, just I'll run it again, make sure it still works, but then I'll break it somehow. Let's break it by saying docker compose down. Down, stop, what? I can't remember what they are. Right again. Okay. So it's whole thing. And that is not what I want, I don't think. This is a backtrace. Oh no, it is. Look at that, a load ledger error in the middle of all that. Okay, so we captured exception, we turned it into our own error type. In here, okay. So I guess I have an effect which is well, I have a ledger store where I can load stuff and I can run it. Oops. From main, how am I running it? I can run it with a particular implementation of the store. So in theory, I can swap this out and run it within the memory store or whatever else. So I'm hoping I can do, probably next week now, is start to structure the application a little bit, I guess. What would I do? I mean, I guess it is structured in a way, right? I have a store and it does something. What I might try and do then is implement, maybe bring in servant and see if I can run servant with these effects. That'd be quite a step forward. But yeah, okay, some progress. Effectful's in place. I copied and pasted a lot of code that I didn't fully understand, but made some sense. And then I managed to run the application. I managed to handle errors in a slightly more graceful way. So yeah, cool. I guess that's some progress. Thanks for watching along. Next week, I plan on continuing with more effectful stuff. And yeah, maybe I'll try and plug into something, but this something will probably be servant. We'll see. Cool. Well, thanks for watching and hope to see you next week. Goodbye.